at Hampton, we're kind of moving in a direction where we're trying to lead, especially the National Park Service mission, in telling the truth, right, by starting with this site. And this site is not well known. It's not really well known to the public. We're only open Thursday through Sunday, and in part that's because we don't get visitation. Right. People don't recognize the Ridgely name, the Hampton reference, but I'm sure if you've been here before, or if not, after you're done today, you're going to realize that this is a very significant site. And people should come here to see this place and hear the stories and hear the names, because this is telling of the American experience. And this could be a very powerful and emotional experience if you talk about the right things. Right. So when we see a group, we like to engage them and help you in going in that direction.
The Donald and Mr. McCoy said it's all right. That's what they want.
So, whenever, and if, did you want me to start, or I know you still got people.
Oh, we got people still in the restroom. We'll let a few people come more out. Yeah, I'm a little bit familiar with the area here. Okay. One of the Ridgeleys was one of our governors here in Maryland, and they have a place downtown in Baltimore called Ridgely Delight, which of course was owned by them. Because when you own metal works as well as Plantation, you have lots of money. Yeah. And money do help you to buy properties other than just the one you own.
That's what would put the family in that inner circle of people in power, their money. Everybody wanted a bit of their money, right? That's what it was here. And y'all picked a beautiful day to come out too.
Isn't it though? Nice and cool.
Yeah.
No crazy heat.
It's been so hot lately that I'm surprised today that it feels as good.
Yeah, right across from the baseball stadium. That's Ridgely Delight. Mr. Ridgely would need a spot downtown to handle business. You know?
Is everybody from Baltimore? Yeah. Everybody. All right, you need to take this in then, because this place has such a direct impact on Baltimore today. And I'll share some details about that, but this is your story if you're from Baltimore. It doesn't even matter what color you are and what your background is, and if you came in from another city and now you're just here as the first generation in Baltimore, this family and the plantation here would have such a direct impact on everything that Baltimore is today. We got a couple more?
Well, I can take the one. You go here, start.
Yeah? All right. Well, welcome to Hampton National Historic Site. I'm Ranger Angel. So if you need anything, find me. If you're walking around, I love talking about this place. So this is the Ridgely Estate, the Hampton Plantation site, for a plantation that was over 24,000 acres large. This made this property one of the largest plantations in the entire country, therefore one of the largest slave plantations in the entire country, especially since it's here in Maryland. I think it makes it that much more significant because this is the most southern state in the entire country. I'm from North Carolina, so I had some words with people when I moved here that told me this is a southern state, and I looked at them like, no, like this is the north. But now that I've been here over a year, I realize that the culture of Maryland and everything about the history and the heritage is very much southern. And with that southern heritage, unfortunately, came the existence of slavery. So even though it was a Union state, even through the American Civil War, slavery was legal in the state of Maryland. So that makes this a very interesting and complex place when you're telling American history. Okay? Baltimore is a good example of it. You go to Fort McHenry in Baltimore, you had Union soldiers that manned the guns of Baltimore, right? The Union was that northern cause, and they would end slavery. They were at Fort McHenry, but the guns on Fort McHenry, where were they facing? They were facing Baltimore City, because the people of Baltimore were, predominantly supporting that southern cause with the Confederacy. That shows you how complex things were here in this state. So right here, just north of this city, one of the largest in the entire country, over 50,000 people living in it in 1814. Just south of Pennsylvania, which is what? Is that a free state? It is. So just south of a free state, just north of Baltimore, that had one of the largest free black populations in the nation, and the stomping grounds for Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, right? Everyone knows them and what they were doing. Right in the middle of all that hope for freedom, you still had one of the largest slave plantations in the entire country. How does that happen? Right? These people here that were in bondage, if they knew what was just north of them and what was just south of them, right? Maybe they would have taken that chance to run, to get their freedom, to be freedom seekers. We like to use certain terminology here to change the mindset of people today in America and the world, really, that don't understand what happened in this age. One of them is referring to enslaved people as enslaved people, right? Because being enslaved is a condition that's forced upon you. Referring to them as slaves is saying that they are a slave and they always will be a slave, right? It's a condition of their natural state. That's not true. It was forced on them. And then also that they're freedom seekers, right? Because they have a right to freedom. So they're not runaways, right? That kind of implies some kind of criminal activity when you're a runaway. They're freedom seekers. So how is it that so many people were kept in bondage right here with so much freedom around them? How was that? Any ideas?
They didn't have social media.
Yeah, they didn't have social media, right? Knowledge is power, okay? You hear that, I bet, in school and from your parents and any guardians you may encounter. It is so true. And our history is testament to that. Psychologically, we kept all these people in bondage. Okay? Yes, that meant that some physical abuse would come in that process. And chains would be a part of that process, yes. But those people that were enslaved here weren't in chains 24/7. And they didn't have physical walls, 20-foot, 30-foot walls surrounding the whole property, did they? So how is it with so much freedom around them did they stay in place for their whole lives and endure through so much abuse? It's because from the time they were born and the time that they were children, they were psychologically conditioned to be in that state of bondage, so that when they became adults and they continued working in that process, in that institution, they felt in their minds that they had no choice. And if we took that knowledge from them, that education from them, and especially their ability to read and write, right, then they can't see in the local paper that Frederick Douglass is preaching about freedom in Baltimore. They can't see that in the paper that Pennsylvania is fighting for the rights of people of color in their capital. So you take away that knowledge, that education, you psychologically condition them to this state and this condition, this situation. There's really nothing you can do about that, right?
Could I add something?
Yeah.
When he talks about that psychology, if you think about the fact that they were never allowed off this place, so that was a part of the psychology where they didn't know what was out there, and no sense of what they meant by freedom. Even when we were told that we were free after the Civil War, we didn't know what that meant. We were running around saying I'm free, and not really knowing what that meant. But also the idea that the punishment was a part of that psychology. That you saw people shackled in one way or another, or the psychology of someone having run away, getting caught, being brought back, and you knew what that could mean for them. The psychology also meant that they didn't have time and I'm referring to just the whole plantation system in general. They didn't have time to punish everybody. If you spend all of your time punishing everybody, you don't get the return on your investment. So they punish one person. Those bells that we have in the museum, they're ringing out to everybody else that the same thing could happen to you. So they put one person in that contraption, but they send a message to everybody else, and that was the psychology of it as well. Just the ways in which you learned the lesson of not obeying and not who was in charge.
Also, didn't they say like they used the method like they break horses with, and that it takes 5 generations to unlearn it. So
yeah, so many. I was looking at something where where they shocked the cow because they didn't want him to lie down when they were trying to pull the calf out. And they use that kind of thing on us. We definitely know in the civil rights movement, but you know, just those things where they shocked you. There were so many instruments of torture, and again, that was a part of the psychology too, because you saw what this thing as one person, and everybody, they controlled everybody just by what they did to one person.
Thank you so much. Here at Hampton, we have that documented, even if it's not in an actual record, right? Because enslaved people and that servant class, it's not even that they didn't know how to read, because we know that a lot did, right? But they would keep that even from their holders because they would be a threat. They didn't document their experience. They didn't document their own story. So here at Hampton, we know of that experience and that process of psychological bondage through simple, or what would appear to be just simple items of that day. Innocent items, if we had them today. We have a Christmas list here at Hampton, and it has the names of enslaved children on the far left column and the years above the top, and then it has blocks that were filled in to show what gifts they got every year. The list that we have on displays from the 1840s and 50s, it would appear to be something benevolent, right? The family would even share that story of this great tradition and how benevolent it was and how good it was. In North Carolina, where I'm from, I saw a similar list over the mantles of so many plantation homes, and they too would talk about it being something good, right? That's when people get into the conversation of were they treated good here compared to there, and is this evidence of that? You can never compare, because there's always an underlying story, right? Something under the surface. We know here that that Christmas list was just a system of reward and punishment. All it did was enforce that process of conditioning and indoctrinating the children into this institution of slavery. On that list, when you go in the farmhouse, we have a copy of it. Look for it. On that list, we have the name of Augustus Gibbs. Augustus Gibbs gets a toy harmonica in 1841. A couple years later, he's put out of the house. It says it on that list. We have an ad, a runaway ad, that is looking for Augustus Gibbs around that same time period. He's found and brought back. He's being punished. That's what that Christmas list is doing. Eliza Wells gets a toy doll the first year, and then in parentheses it says not to receive any gift. We know of a young enslaved girl named Eliza who upset one of the Ridgely girls around the same time period. She was actually suspected of hurting one of her pet squirrels. The fact that she had a pet squirrel, right? That's telling of that sense of entitlement over something you wouldn't really control. But beside that fact, it's just speculation, but that could be the same Eliza being punished. Billy Davis is also on that list. He gets a toy soldier, a toy trumpet, 2 years in a row. And let me add a detail to this whole process. A young girl, a daughter of one of the owners, is the one filling in these blocks. So she wrote in the blocks that Billy Davis got a toy trumpet, a toy soldier. And then this young girl, wrote in that block for 1844 that young Billy Davis was dead. And then she continued to fill in the rest of the blocks for other children in other years. So that shows you the level of this conditioning and how far it was taken through this process, where even this young girl, daughter of a slaveholder, was okay with filling in these blocks and marking that this little boy she saw the previous 2 years was dead. Because through that system, she had also been conditioned to believe that the little boy was no better than the animals on that farm. So when you're in the farmhouse, look for that Christmas list and see, because it started with that simple and what would appear to be innocent Christmas list. It started with that to condition all these people into that bondage. So go through the house, look at the runaway ads. We have replica chains in there. We have a collar that was used, that is documented as being used on children that tried to escape. They would dangle bells on the end of it so they heard everywhere they went. We have chains in there that look small enough and only large enough, to fit around your ankle, because we associate chains with sometimes with prisoners of today, our system, and how we transport prisoners. So immediately when I show people, they're like, "Oh, those are for the ankles," because that's how we transport prisoners, people with rights today. That actually went around their neck. And that chain then went through the loop, and they could put 3 or 4 people on that one chain. Because again, the laws and the culture of that day and the conditioning of this whole process, this plantation culture made it so that they were only treated as animals would be treated. Legally, culturally, socially. We put leashes on our dogs today. So get in there, walk through the farmhouse, walk through the slave quarters. Be mindful, though, as you walk through these slave quarters, that this is an ornamental farm. The slave quarters are 2 stories, have glass windows, and look beautiful, actually, only because the owners and their visitors could see them from the main house. So this is a show farm. They had over 20,000 acres of land, a scattered farm that had big tracts of all homes for governors.